It is a lie. Listen, he lied over 20 times. Daniel Dale from CNN has done the fact checking, and a lot of those lies were about immigration. He said Maduro opened up the prisons and the insane asylums. There is no evidence, zero, that Maduro did that. Castro did it in 1980. But there is zero evidence that Maduro did it in the last few years.
This is kind of the whole point. You're literally defending Maduro in Venezuela right now.
I am not defending Maduro. I am telling you the guy you say is unifying is a pathological liar.
I don't think it's defending Maduro to just point out.
You could feel the tension before this panel even got going. Ana Navarro stepped onto Abby Phillips' CNN show and went head-to-head with MAGA voices, Lydia Mohan and Jason Rantz. And it was never going to be calm or polite. This was a straight-up clash between a vocal Trump critic and two pundits ready to defend him at every turn. What followed wasn't just a debate. It was a snapshot of the political divide playing out in real time. Facts versus loyalty, outrage versus deflection, and two completely different versions of reality colliding on national television. Like the video and subscribe right now. I've got some strong thoughts on this exchange. Let's take a closer look at this clip.
That ugly State of the Union clash, well, it just got a little uglier because now President Trump is escalating his fight with Democratic Congresswoman Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib. Both had begun shouting when Trump challenged Democrats to stand for Americans while he was speaking about illegal immigration and fraud in Minnesota. Now, in a post today, Trump said that Omar and Tlaib screamed uncontrollably and had the bulging, bloodshot eyes of crazy people. He likened them to lunatics and suggested that they be institutionalized. Then he added, quote, "We should send them back to where they came from as fast as possible." Vice President J.D. Vance also got in the war of words.
They were all looking around for cues from their colleagues because they didn't have the courage to stand on their own. And that, more than anything, Bill, is the saddest commentary on the Democratic Party, that not only will they not stand for the idea that Americans should come first, they won't even have the courage of their convictions. They lean on the person to their left and their right rather than actually have some conviction.
But Omar says that she has no regrets.
And I think many people look at that moment when the president says it is our responsibility to protect Americans, and he does not acknowledge the fact that two Americans, two of my constituents, two of our neighbors were killed. And it was important for me to just remind the American people that the president and his administration was responsible for killing two American citizens.
Congressman Moskowitz, you were in the room last night, right? Was that moment what Donald Trump ultimately wanted and what perhaps your Democratic leadership wanted to avoid?
Oh, yeah, no. The president clearly came in with a strategy to do that, right? His strategy was to try to rage bait people into that fight. He wanted that, and he got it. Look, ultimately, he's not deporting two members of Congress, just like he didn't lock up Hillary, even though that was chanted in arenas, around the country. So, look, he can't fix his poll numbers. He can't turn around the fact that he's underwater on the economy, underwater on immigration, the two issues that helped get him elected. So what he's going to try to do is he's going to try to fight to the point where he tries to make us not an option, right? He wants to just bring us down with him to the hope that that might help him somehow survive the midterms. This is the new strategy. He met with his pollsters. They saw where everything is. They can't turn around their stuff. They've ruined it in the first year. So the strategy is to try to bring everybody down in order to survive the midterms.
So Rashida Tlaib responded to Trump. She said, "Can't take two Muslims talking back and correcting him, so now he's crashing out." And then she used the hashtag President Majnoon, which means crazy or insane in Persian.
Yeah, I mean, she also got what she wanted, which was a mistake, I think, for the Democrats to play into that. I actually agree with the congressman. I think the president was setting up Democrats in a really simple and easy way. They shouldn't have fallen for it. It seems pretty easy to stand up and say, actually, no, I support American people first. That is where I stand. And we can have a nuanced conversation afterwards if you want about illegal immigration. But they walked into that trap because it was so easy to set.
Well, but that's not true. I mean, I stand for...
Most Democrats did not stand.
I stand for Americans over non-citizens. And so do all of my colleagues. But just because... It's not the Galactic Senate. Just because the emperor says rise doesn't mean I get up. Like I'm a different branch of government. I rose for the heroes that were in the gallery, not because the president.
But not for the other point. I mean, you rose because, and thank you for rising. I think in those cases that this is an easy moment to be united, whether it's around Team USA or it's around any of the people who were featured there. But that's sending a message that you agree with the statement or the sentiment, and you chose not to stand.
Well, I'm sure if Joe Biden told Republicans to rise, they would have leapt from their seats.
But to that point, doesn't that happen at every single State of the Union address? The president says something innocuous. The party that is the opposite party doesn't stand. That happens every single year.
Yeah, but I don't feel like this. I don't feel like these
like
shouting matches used to happen. I mean, they started happening maybe in my memory with Joe Wilson under Obama. I don't like Donald Trump. I don't support Donald Trump, but I am an institutionalist, and I think that there is a pomp and circumstance and gravitas to something like the State of the Union. Does he use it to lie? Yes. Does he use it to divide? Does he use it to attack immigrants? Yes. But that doesn't mean that that two Congress people should be in this shouting match. And look, what he tweeted out today is horribly racist. And I say this as somebody that gets told the same thing over and over again. Go back to where you came from. I can't tell you how many times I open up social media and it says, go eat a burrito and go back to Mexico, because racists are so stupid, they don't realize there's more than one country in Latin America, and I'm not from Mexico. Also, I don't eat burritos. I like tacos. But the fact that what he said is racist and it is horrible, and it's, and it emboldens and it strengthens, empowers racism. My question is, how does it help American citizens to have the president of the United States and two Congress people in a pissing match over stupidity? How does it help them have lower grocery prices? How does it help him have access to health care, access to housing? And actually, I think it's, you talk about Donald Trump goading them into this. I think this is really stupid by Donald Trump. I mean, most people use the State of the Union as a launching pad to then go out and sell their agenda and try to have it be a good moment for them. And instead, he's out there in the, in the bottom of the gutter, fighting and being a racist pig. Why?
Ana Navarro isn't confused about who Donald Trump is, and neither is the country. What we're seeing now isn't just one man's style. It's the identity of today's Republican Party. MAGA isn't a faction anymore. It is the brand. At this point, if you're proudly flying the Republican banner, you're tied to Trump whether you admit it or not. And Trump's political playbook hasn't changed. It's confrontation over coalition, insults over inspiration. He thrives in chaos, in constant grievance, in dragging every debate into the mud because that's where he feels strongest. When there aren't major legislative wins to spotlight, the strategy shifts to spectacle, loud claims, bold declarations, constant attacks. The performance becomes the policy. But here's the bigger issue. The country is exhausted. His approval numbers have hovered in shaky territory, often stuck in the low to mid-40s, sometimes dipping lower depending on the poll. Yes, he has a fiercely loyal base that won't budge. But outside that core, skepticism is real and it's persistent. And this didn't start overnight. The partisan flames were burning long before Trump, but he didn't cool them down. He poured fuel on them. For years, Republicans painted Democrats as radical extremists, and over time that language lost its shock value. When everything is labeled socialism or communism, the words stop meaning anything. So now we're left with a political culture that feels permanently dialed up to outrage. The discourse is coarser, the trust is thinner, and the real question hanging over all of this is simple. Can American politics ever find its footing again? Or is this the new normal?
Trump is asking about protecting Americans. Is it fair for her to raise the two Americans who were killed?
Well, I think Trump's entire speech was actually pretty unifying. I think Donald Trump's superpower is positioning himself as the common sense guy who's advocating for positions that the vast majority of Americans want. And there was one moment at the beginning where he invited the USA hockey team, and of course the crowd went wild chanting USA, USA, and then the camera panned to Rashida Tlaib, who appeared to be mouthing KKK. And then again, you had another moment where Trump says, stand up if you want to support American citizens over illegal aliens. And instead, Ilhan Omar is screaming and heckling the president. And those are the best kind of sound bites and visuals that the GOP can have for the midterms, because a lot of people might not like Donald Trump and might be kind of hemming and hawing. And then they look at the alternative and they say, oh, well, this really angry woman, gosh, I don't know about her. So that's what Trump set out to do.
That was my question.
Highlight the 80-20 issues.
In response to his own question, is it fair for the Democrats to respond, why, yes, we do care about American citizens, including two that were killed.
Yes, it is fair, but not in that venue.
But
it is fair, but not at that moment.
That the President of the United States did not even mention the two U.S. citizens that were killed in Minnesota. How do you do the State of the Union, because you care about Americans so much, and not even mention the two people who lost their lives on the streets of America at the hand of federal agents.
One who tried to run over.
But how do you not even, you can do your commentary all you want or, critique, but how do you not mention that two people died in that environment? And the president was one of the most unifying speeches. The president who said, look at the Democrats, aren't they crazy? He obviously does not understand that when he won election, he is supposed to represent all people.
When you go through some of the moments he went to, right, he pointed to a little girl, Delilah, who was almost killed by an illegal alien, miraculously came back. She was there with her dad. When you have Democrats who won't stand and applaud her recovery, yeah, I think that's
Sadly,
crazy.
people are killed in America every day. Sadly. And the majority of them are killed by U.S. citizens. So whether an undocumented immigrant,
I'm saying
whether it's an undocumented immigrant or a U.S. citizen who's the perpetrator, the bottom line is somebody has died or someone has been
One died as a result
injured.
of bad policy that was in place for 4 years, allowing people to come into this country unvetted illegally. And if we had border policies that actually worked, those people wouldn't be here and those deaths would not have occurred. That's the difference. So when you can point directly to policy, I think that's obviously well within the scope of any president, Democrat or Republican.
Yeah. By the way, it went so well in Minnesota that the president sidelined his secretary, skipped her in the cabinet meeting, replaced her with Tom Homan, who then pulled everybody out. So yeah, it worked real well that they abandoned it and left. That's number one. Number two is, look, Donald Trump there's a lot of verbs and adjectives to describe. Unifying is not one of them. He doesn't even think he's unifying. That's not his strategy.
Two-thirds of the people who watched the speech thought it was very positive, and they liked it.
Actually, it was the lowest positivity in 20 years of any.
I think that's right.
Listen, and he patently, bold-faced lied about illegal immigrants and criminality. He said that the man who had killed the Ukrainian woman in Charlotte, North Carolina, Irina, was an undocumented immigrant who had been let in by Biden. That was a lie.
That's
He's a
not
U.S.
true.
citizen. He was born in North Carolina.
You're right. He misspoke, but it was another policy failure that led to him killing
That was
her.
purposeful, him using illegal immigrants as the boogeyman. He said 12,000 murderers had been allowed in by Joe Biden. That's made up. He's making that number up and conflating
We don't
numbers.
know.
That is no.
We don't know. There's maybe 20 people who
We
came
do
across
know
the
because
southern border.
ICE has put out numbers.
No,
we
we do
actually
know.
do know that that's not
We
true.
do
It is a
know.
lie. Listen, he lied over 20 times. Daniel Dale from CNN has done the fact checking, and a lot of those lies were about immigration. He said Maduro opened up the prisons and the insane asylums. There is no evidence, zero, that Maduro did that. Castro did it in 1980. But there is zero evidence that Maduro did it in the last few years.
This is kind of the whole point. Is you're literally defending Maduro in
I am not
Venezuela right
defending
now.
Maduro. I am telling you the guy you say is unifying is a pathological liar.
I don't think it's defending.
Here's the pattern you keep seeing. Ana Navarro brings up documented data, crime statistics, fact checks, recorded statements, and the response from Lydia Mohan and the MAGA panel isn't to counter with stronger evidence. It's to shrug and say, well, how do we really know? It's manufactured doubt. If you can blur the numbers enough, you can turn any verified statistic into a debate. We track crime, we track immigration, we track economic data. That's how public policy works. But on panels like this, facts suddenly become optional. Everything becomes vibes. If one crime involves an immigrant, it's treated as proof of a sweeping crisis. If Trump's false claims are documented, that's dismissed as opinion. It's selective skepticism. Question the data you don't like. Amplify the anecdotes that fit your narrative. You saw it again with the State of the Union reaction. One side cites approval data showing it was historically low. The other simply declares it unifying because that's how it felt to them. That's the divide in a nutshell. Measurable numbers versus emotional interpretation. And outside the studio lights, the broader reality is this. Trump remains a deeply polarizing figure. He has a loyal base, no doubt. But large portions of the country consistently express serious concerns about his leadership and agenda. That tension isn't media spin. It shows up in polling, elections, and public response. So the real question isn't just who won that panel exchange. It's whether political debate can move back toward evidence and accountability, or whether it stays locked in this cycle where facts are negotiable and feelings carry the day. Let me know what you think. Are you with Ana Navarro's argument, or do you think the MAGA panel made the stronger case? Drop your thoughts below, and do not forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next one.